Kia ora everybody, today I take a look at a LEGO Ideas Disney based set that released this year in 2024. This here is set 21352, LEGO Ideas Magic of Disney, which released back at the start of October. 1,103 pieces in total with 7 figures, 4 of which are minifigures and exclusive to this set. The other remaining 3 are some classic Disney animals. This retails here for 100 USD or the pretty high price point of 180 NZD, but immediately at launch, the set here went to sale for less than 150 NZD. And for the NZ crowd out there, it is still currently priced like that. I am in a privileged scenario where the funds that I receive from this channel and from you, the viewer, help go towards paying for sets like this one you see here. I'm incredibly grateful for all of your support. Liking this video and subscribing to this channel does help to support more future videos like this one. Thank you very much for watching. And the set overview here on this one is a strange looking amalgamation of Disney ideas to help celebrate the 100-year anniversary, though this was released outside of the marketing schedule of 2023, which was the 100 years. Last year seemed to be Disney's biggest booming year yet for merchandising, if you ask me, so nowhere on the box does this actually say Disney 100 advertised. But this was actually part of a very specific LEGO Ideas submission in which builders were tasked with specifically making something that celebrated the Disney 100 anniversary. Listed under the challenge of 100 years of fairy tales. There were many submissions here, but this brick set article here shows that the finalists selected here were these 5. The Fantasia model by Brick Stability was the submission that I personally voted for. Looking at these really cool builds, it's honestly no wonder why this submission here was picked by the audience. It's the only set that featured minifigures, so unfortunately those other ones, they didn't really stand a chance. Still, it is a cool looking model, and even though the Fantasia one I personally wanted didn't make it through, this is ultimately still a Fantasia based set, so win-win. Our box here does show the final model, and it's had some changes made in its design from the original submission, notably with the figures included and the scenes being depicted. Essentially, when you vote on LEGO Ideas, you are voting on the idea of the set and not actually the set itself. Our figures here are also listed up top, and at the back of the box here it just shows the display model once more, with some close-ups of the figures, or one figure specifically. No play features appear to be advertised anywhere here, and I'm also hoping that that means no stickers. Opening up the box now, it's a traditional styled one, but I still remember when the LEGO Ideas line was exclusively that really cool flap door design. Inside here we have our paper bags, which appear to finally be appearing in most of the new releases now. And this is the set here out of the box all built up. It took me around 2 hours I think to build, and while I agree with the masses that this does appear to be a bit smaller than I initially anticipated, I did quite enjoy myself building the designs here, especially with the scenes depicting the movies referenced and the big wave build itself. Something that I want to cover here first though is in the instructions. Firstly, an actual image on the cover that's really nice to see. The inside of the instructions here show us the original designer here with a small blurb on the idea of that set, and then we can see the set in its original form. This is both a good thing and a bad thing here for me personally. Firstly, I love to see reading material inside the instructions because I find that it makes the products feel a bit more premium in their value. I also love behind the scenes looks at artworks, so this is really great to see. And crediting the original person is really nice as well, because without their idea, LEGO can't make a set. The bad part is though, I think the original model has a lot more to offer compared to the final in-stores product. It's really hard to not compare the two when the original is advertised on the inside of the instructions here. Also, a quick note that the submission actually indicated that the model submitted needed to have a piece count of 50 bricks minimum and no more than 800. The submission there even says that they will be disqualifying entries that they believe are either over or under that limit, so theoretically, that should mean that this build here you see on screen is 800 pieces in total or less. That would have significantly lowered that price point then had LEGO not decided to increase the final model by an extra 300 pieces. The other side of the instructions here shows us some descriptions on Disney and some more Disney 100 blurbs. Everyone is probably all sick of this by now. The next pages here show the words from the LEGO Ideas design team and what I'm assuming to be a lifestyle image of the model, or maybe it's actually one of the designers, dunno. The next page here shows us the final build and some details on the figures included and the years that their respective movies released, which is an important detail that we'll be covering with this build. This was something that some of the other Disney 100 sets did, where they included important dates and seemed to have that be the leading factor for some of their decision making in the sets. It's now finally time to take a look at the set. I'm very sorry it took so long to get here. We have a front section here depicting 3 unique scenes from movies from Disney's library, 3 movies that have yet to be referenced in traditional LEGO sets of the minifig scale as well. We have had mini doll representations though of at least Encanto and Beauty and the Beast. We then also have this really great wave build here with some water-based scenes taken from multiple movies, and finally we end with Sorcerer Mickey. And you may be wondering how this all connects together. It's pretty simple. Mickey here is attached last and built separately. The wave is connected at the base through some Technic pegs as well. It's pretty cool to uncover this because usually sets like this might all be interlocked in place or something. You have 3 separate builds here in total. We start with the actual scenes from the movie first. Here we have Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, and Encanto. These builds here actually are linked together. You can see that they use those wedge plates and bricks overlaid to hold everything in place. If I remove Belle here first, this little scene of Beauty and the Beast is the first thing that you build, and it's funny because we actually had something incredibly similar released with the villain set from just last year. This feels very reminiscent of that set, just on a smaller scale. I do really like the ornate designs that LEGO goes with for this movie specifically. Lots of golds and blues and browns make for a really nice little color scheme for me. The rose is my favorite part here, and I assume that might be the same for many. It's just a really cool looking piece for Belle to hold on to here. Currently, there is only one other Beauty and the Beast figure in Gaston, who released last year with the villain set. The next part that you build here is the Encanto display with Bruno. Despite the fact that I personally am not connected with this movie like many others are, it's actually a pretty cool little build, though the figure is a rather strange inclusion for me. Encanto appears to have been chosen specifically because it represents the 2020s era of Disney. Plus, the submission on ideas did say that they weren't going to be including anything with Lucasfilm, Pixar, or Marvel. Encanto was a huge hit once it reached streaming services. People have been requesting this naturally for some years now. The house is awesome to see. It looks like a pretty great hefty advent calendar build, and it genuinely does look recognizable to me. It's a pretty cool display build, and I love the use of Wolverine's claws there for the overgrown plant life. And next up is Lion King. It's the last segment that you build here. Dude, Pride Rock! The tree build here is my favorite because it uses some interesting tree branch pieces that I don't think I've recognized from sets before. I'm not saying that they're new, but they are new to me. I also like the contrasting designs here for the desert lands with the fancy ornate setting of Beauty and the Beast and that grass-like housing. I do think that these 3 builds together make for a pretty good choice. Pride Rock is probably the simplest build here. Simba's got a small little area to stand on, and the rocks are chunky pieces all held in angles. Spinning the set around, we can see the back details here are pretty slim, but this part is covered up by the wave and Mickey, and I do love the pearlescent blues that are used on Beauty's build there. It's now time to take a look at the Great Wave itself, and it's rather interesting. They took some water elements, I assume for Fantasia, and threw in some extra figures who feature moments with water in their respective films. That's what I think the build idea here was. It doesn't actually state anything in the instructions. It's strange, but I actually really like semantic stuff like this in LEGO sets. Any excuse you can think of to get something happening in a set is going to be a gold star for me. The wave section's really cool. I do really like the evolution of the colors used there. I love the idea that this could be used for a personal build because it does look like the outer shell of, say, an aquatic themed amusement ride at a theme park. You could insert the ride where Mickey goes. There's some massive swinging death rides in Australia that have an outer design that look just like this thing, so that's immediately where my mind went while I was building. We have here Lilo first, who is hanging out on her surfboard. The figure is easily removable, and the chunk that she's on is able to be moved around for your display options. Pretty simple stuff. Opposite her we have Ariel's friends, which are placed on some superhero launching pieces, which nowadays have been used many times for displaying items in sets. Awesome inclusions ultimately. Right above them is honestly my favorite part of the set. It's the magic brooms from Fantasia. The builds for these guys have appeared armless before in other sets, but finally they feel really complete here, and you get 3 of them. I think that these inclusions here are wonderful. The build for their scene I also love too, with the steps going upwards and the water below them built in clear pieces. And across from them we end the setting with Geppetto, who is displayed here on a little raft. That raft has a similar connection to Lilo, so you can see some movements here for the display. I love this raft design a lot as well. Printed tiles here used for the wood designs and a brick built sail, which looks really cool, and I noticed from in the instructions it is incredibly similar to the original design. It's not often that you see elements directly taken from the submission, which tells me that the LEGO Ideas team agreed here. The original one just completely aced it for this build. there are two standing areas for your minifigures here to be displayed on, and it's probably a good time to show you that all of the instructions here actually indicate using the figures as display items. You don't build these guys at the start of the bags like you usually do, the set actually wants you to include them in the display. It's not often that you see that in your LEGO sets. Before properly moving on, these inclusions are the ones that were mostly swapped out from the original submission. Stitch here was absent, and instead we got a Lilo inclusion for the first time ever. Ariel was in the original model, but they removed her entirely, and instead of featuring the brick-built companions, we got the mini doll inclusions of Sebastian and Flounder instead. Despite having a minifigure released last year, Sorcerer Mickey is not included here with the magic brooms. That's likely due to the massive brick-built figure being included here instead. And the original model also featured Pinocchio on the little raft build, since that was a minifigure released last year too, but they swapped him out for a character I don't think anyone ever could have predicted that we would get in a set, in Geppetto. And now it's time to take a look at Mickey himself. The brick-built model is the tallest part of the build here, only just, and the final addition to your model. Mickey has some high highs and unfortunately some low lows. Starting out here with the face, I think some of this works really well and some of it does miss the mark for me. I love the printed tile of the eyes, which I assume is brand new here for the set. They really did nail the silhouette design here, which is very important for the Disney-based characters, but the lack of a mouth does kind of throw off the design for me. The build of the mouth is there, it's just not highly detailed. That is a classic cartoon style of using your imagination to fill in the remaining pieces, but the original idea did have a really great design for the mouth. I assume the mouth was skipped over here because they couldn't make it work with the size and or the piece count. I'm also really disappointed with the wizard hat design here. Merchandising designs do change things naturally over time, but traditionally the hat should be oversized for Mickey because it's not actually made for him. In the original design, the hat is actually quite huge. It even looks like it overlays over the ears almost, which is the exact design from the cartoon. It should be oversized like this, it looks pretty good. The hat in the final product here is tiny in comparison. I understand that it isn't massive and it will feel like nitpicking, but it's just something I noticed, and once I did, it was really hard for me to unnotice that. Unfortunately too, given how the model is made, it means that the hat can't fit correctly on the build. You can see me here adjusting it in the footage, and maybe I did something wrong, let me know if I did down below, but the hat either sits too far forward or too far backwards, not perfectly in the middle. I do really like the printing though of the hat, and actually removing the hat there makes for its own nice little desk display. The ears I imagine were very tricky to get right. I do think that the design here is pretty decent, but the build is quite fragile. A very simple connector there which allows for some movements. I don't think that's intentional though, and they can fall apart very easily. Mickey's head also doesn't move for anyone wondering. The hands and arms are decent enough. I love the use of these thick cylinder parts for building out brick-built characters. In the original design, we saw these parts being used for the fingers, which I think gives him an amazing cartoony design. LEGO usually do this though, they take that design and they simplify it for scale, so here he features some spindly brick-built fingers instead. Mickey's gloves are supposed to be massive, so I love the original design. It helps to give him more character than these fingers we have. Plus, you probably saw this from the views at the back, but the back of the hands here are exposed, which is quite unpleasant to see. If they use those cylinder pieces, it wouldn't look like this. You won't see these hands though anyway, since the waves should be in the way. There is a little bit of movement here for the fingers, nothing too major. His sleeves are brick built, which I think is okay. I love the dropping design there where it goes downwards, but I don't really like the exposed part up top. I do like the smooth pieces though, which helps to kind of give it a curvature design. The instructions also say that they designed the interior to represent the original designer's favorite Disney movie and character. So I ask you, the audience, can you guess who this character is? Assembly of the set is rather easy. Mickey goes here, and it looks pretty great honestly, and then the movie scenes are connected via the Technic pegs. The minifigure inclusions here really do make this set, obviously, and there are some pros and cons here for these characters. The first figure I wanted to talk about here is Belle, who alongside Tiana is probably my favorite Disney princess inclusion, mostly because those are two of my favorite movies of all time. I have been waiting for Beauty and the Beast for a long time now in minifigure form, and LEGO have been slowly drip feeding us with these releases. I'm still waiting for a Beast Big Fig then. I think Belle's great. The design here matches the princess figures from the castle, so she'll fit in quite well with them. She seems to use the same mini doll's hairpiece that she's had for a while now. That yellow just looks very ornate to me and very beautiful. She features a double-sided expression of a much bigger smile. I hope to see her in her blue and white dress then in the future. Bruno is probably a big fan favorite figure inclusion here. I'm perplexed by this inclusion though, because similar to Belle releasing after Gaston, this guy here is the first minifigure inclusion from Encanto, not Mirabel. I do like the printing a lot here though, and I think I could repurpose this figure for an Empress New Groove Pacha figure. He includes an accessory which is the tablet featuring the Encanto house, and a double-sided expression of his green future vision eyes. I may not be so hot on the character here, but the minifigure is pretty damn good. Lilo is the next figure that I was personally excited for because Lilo and Stitch and the 2000s era of Disney is my childhood Disney era. Lilo here uses a brick piece for a dress, which they've been doing sometimes on the younger characters, and it's a design choice I actually really love. Printing is used here as well. Her hairpiece is actually reused from the Encanto sets, one of those sisters has it, I don't know. Lilo here has a double-sided expression featuring a more cartoony gesture, which she's clearly up to no good. It's a really cool figure, but seeing her in minifigure form made me realize just how important for her design that nose is. And then finally we have Geppetto of all characters, and man, I gotta say, pretty great figure honestly, could possibly be one of the best ones here. Actually, in saying that, all four of them are pretty damn good. Geppetto here uses the shaggy hair from Scooby-Doo but colored in white, and I think that is excellent. It is a classic looking style hairpiece, so it's very fitting for this character and time period while also being a reuse and a recolor. I also really love the simplistic design for his torso here, which I think matches the time period of that film's release, and it only helps to highlight just how different those other figures are in this set. A double-sided expression of a more worried look, that is the face of a man about to be eaten by a whale, and actually in saying that, I do wish Monstro had some sort of involvement with this set, given that that could have been a really nice water-based inclusion. We then get to Simba. This is the first time that Simba has ever appeared in a minifig scaled set, or the Lion King in general. Simba did release with 2 brick-built sets just this year, in fact, an awesome small looking one for the kids, and a pretty cool but unnecessary one for the adults. And such is the way. If you're wondering why he looks a little weird here though, it's a LEGO Friends animal that's been reskinned. It's the same mold from sets like this from over a decade ago now. That's fine, it is a pretty cool recolor and all, but there is a difference between how a traditional LEGO animal looks in the minifig sets versus what the LEGO Friends and Princess depictions look like. Example being these cats here on screen. The ones that are standing are usually ones you'd find in minifig based sets, and the ones that have the scary looking human faces are from the Friends line. I actually think that Simba's face here looks pretty good. I just don't really like the body mold that's used here. It just feels really off to me with these other characters. It's the same concern that people had for Dumbo and Bambi being released last year in the Disney camera, but they actually did make new molds for those guys, so it is a shame to see that Simba doesn't get the same treatment here. Lastly, we have Sebastian and Flounder. Might as well look at these guys together. They are re-releases, having appeared in many mini-doll sets before this one, but actually, these guys happen to be remakes from, I believe, 2022 or something. I actually don't mind the appearances of these guys. I understand that they are also from the Friends and Disney Dolls line, but they appear very specific, and in fact, that design of Flounder here is exactly how I want to see Finding Nemo adapted into sets in the future. I like these inclusions a lot because I don't have them personally in my collection already either, which means everybody included in the set is brand new for me. The instructions for the set we pretty much already covered, but we'll do it again just to be safe. You have pages of written works here, which is very cool to see, and the actual instructions appear to be pretty standard like every other LEGO set. The end though shows us the set all built up on display, and then we have a 2-page spread of LEGO ideas, followed by the inventory list, and finally we end with the winning page. And overall, I like this set. I am satisfied with the figures here included, even if I question some of the choices made here. I do think that the movie scenes work really well for this set, and I think that the giant wave of amalgamations is really cool as well. It's impressive stuff overall. However, the one part I was most looking forward to building here was the Mickey Mouse build, and I don't think that that lived up to my expectations. Mickey in the original model just looks incredible. It's cartoony in its design, and it's overall the exact level of expressiveness that I wanted to see from a brick-built Mickey Mouse. It feels a lot higher in quality than this build, unfortunately. Before leaving today, I wanted to take a look at what the set would have looked like if we replaced the minifigures here with the original ones proposed in the idea submission. You just have to ignore that the builds don't work anymore, but here we have an idea of the original design. Only Belle remains here, alongside the Little Mermaid companions, though instead of being brick-built, they are the mini-doll inclusions. I did love the idea of re-releases for Ariel and Aladdin because it has been far too long since people had the opportunity to get those figures, and surely this is something that LEGO knows and agrees with. Evidently not, though, I guess, because they were removed from this release. Hopefully someday people will have the opportunity to get their favourite figures once more. That's it from me here. If you enjoyed this look at a LEGO Ideas Disney set, then liking this video and subscribing to this channel helps to support more videos like this one in the future. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Ka kite anō, take care, and I hope to see you all next time.